Today, we're joined by Edmund S. McAlister, Lieutenant Colonel, Military Intelligence, U.S. Army retired, J.D. DePaul University College of Law, a retired military intelligence officer in the United States Army, specializing in tactical intelligence, counterintelligence, and force protection. An experienced firearm instructor and a practicing lawyer. As you can imagine, Ed brings a rare and well-rounded perspective to this conversation. He's served at a high level in military intelligence where understanding threats and making decisions under pressure is critical. And he's also spent years as a corporate litigator, working on complex cases where decisions, risk, and consequences play out in very real ways. That combination gives him a unique lens, not on just what happens in the moment, but how those moments unfold over time, long after the initial decision, and how to prepare for those risks that can happen. So, Ed, welcome. Glad to have
Thank
you
you.
here.
I'm very glad to be here. Thank you, Lori. Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this. I know that I want to say up front that I'm incredibly proud of you and proud of you doing this as a podcast. I think it's important for people to think about these things, to look at life and say, there's a little bit of risk out there. As a military intelligence officer, my job was to reduce risk for the commander. I would try and reduce uncertainty for a commander by understanding the enemy, understanding the tactics, understanding the terrain, understanding how these things all fit together. But something that's really important to remember, and something that I used to tell commanders all the time, I can reduce uncertainty through planning, through careful evaluation, through all those. I can reduce uncertainty, but it's a rheostat that does not go to zero. Okay. I can't eliminate uncertainty. I can reduce it. I can't eliminate it. And the reason for that is because on the other side of the equation, you have a thinking enemy. You have a thinking threat actor who is out there actively looking for ways to hurt you. And so you can't predict all that. Erich von Moltke, the famous German field marshal, once said that no plan survives contact with the enemy. And it's true. As soon as you've got this wonderful plan, and as soon as somebody hits you in the mouth, as Mike Tyson used to say, the plan goes out the window. But it doesn't go completely out the window. And that leads to another quote from Dwight Eisenhower, which is, plans are worthless, but planning is indispensable. So you have to think about your home defense as a plan, as something in the same way we used to do fire drills in school, right? And we all thought they were lame, and we all walked down the stairs and then out into the recess, and they'd count our noses, and here we'd go. But had there been a fire, that's exactly what we'd have done. In other words, these are, just because it's simple doesn't make it stupid. And a lot of what we're talking about today, or what I'm talking about today anyway, has to do with common sense approaches to defending your home, to making your home more secure. Again, can't reduce that uncertainty to zero. Can't do it. But you can, in fact, take certain steps that will, I think, reduce uncertainty and help you be more secure in your possessions and effects, as the Constitution says. Some framing thoughts I'd like to give to sort of start things out. Planning is the operative term. You have to think this through. You have to have an idea of what it is you want to accomplish, and have to have sort of considered the things that are out there. It has to be a layered plan. And by layered, I mean, and I'll get into this a little more, but there are multiple layers to any defensive program. And those have to do with deterrence, with detection, with things of this nature that we'll get into. But it has to be layered, and it has to be thought through.
I like that layered concept. And a lot of civilians don't really consider the idea or the concept of layered home defense.
These things are nested, to use the Army term. We nest these things inside each other like those little Russian dolls. And it does have to be layered. You have to think about everything from the outer perimeter to the final sort of defensive spot. And that's the way to think of it, is exterior to interior. You also have to communicate this plan. For me, it's my wife and I. It's just the two of us. It's very easy to communicate what it is I want to do, and what and get her input and talk back and forth. It's very easy for us to do because it's just the two of us. You got kids, might be more complicated. Where are the kids? How far away from you are they? When the situation arises, are they downstairs while you're upstairs? These kinds of things, just have to think about them. Again, no home defense plan, no plan of any kind is foolproof. They just aren't. There's, again, a thinking enemy out there who wants very much to get in and get your stuff, or get you, or do whatever it is that they're going to do that's nasty. But the failure to plan, and the consequences of a failure to plan, I think, are dramatic. People do dumb stuff under the theory that they're perfectly safe in their homes. And they're not necessarily perfectly safe in their homes, as we've seen. I mean, literally this month, or last month rather, there was a home invasion in Winnetka, Illinois. And Winnetka is, for those who aren't familiar with the Chicago area, it's a very upscale neighborhood, gated communities, gated lawn. I mean, gated estates, so to speak. I think the median house price there is $2.5 million. How did it happen? Well, the lady came home. She had left the gate open. Somebody came to the door purporting, with an Outback Steakhouse bag saying, "Here's your food." She opened the door. 5 guys jumped out of the bushes
Oh my gosh.
and in they came and beat everybody up and held them at gunpoint and robbed them and tried to get their safe and all this stuff. How did that happen? Okay, a little common sense wouldn't hurt. Did you order food? If you didn't order food, why are you opening the door to this person? Do you have a peephole that you can look out? Do you have a Ring camera that you can talk through? There's no reason to have opened the door. There's no reason for the gate to have been open. Those are the kinds of things that I think complacency will lead to. In other words, if you are completely oblivious to threat, these are the kinds of things that can happen to you. I'm not victim blaming at all. This poor family had, they didn't deserve this by any stretch.
How many people were in the home?
There were the wife and three kids, the oldest of which I think was 14 or 15. And they got held at gunpoint and slapped around and this and that. And they've made 7 arrests, which is good.
7.
7. Yeah. Apparently there were 6 people that came in the house and a driver. This is how it happens, right? The logic of that, or the conclusion that I draw from that, is that you have to have something of a tactical mindset. One of the things that I've seen in sort of looking at the products, essentially, in terms of education that are out there for home defense, is that it's a lot of guys who have real life CQB, close quarters combat, close quarters battle experience. And these are, the sleeve tattoos, and they're Delta Force guys. And that ain't me. And it's not you. And it's not anybody that I know. Well, it's several people I know, but it's not me. And I don't want my house to be a fortress. I don't need my house to be a fortress. I do need it to be secure. I need my home to be secure. I want to protect my wife, protect my family, my little dog.
And what you're saying brings me to the typical home where you have children and there's a lot of chaos that ensues because you're managing a big household. So you can easily get distracted. But like you said, if you have an intentional plan, you have more of a likelihood to fall back to a good plan.
Well, yeah. And we'll get into some of this here in a minute. But one of the things there's transitional times and transitional spaces within the home and within your routines. So when you come home from the grocery store, you park the car in the driveway, everybody piles out, everybody grabs a bag, goes in the house, the garage door is open, everybody's doing all this stuff. Pull into the garage, close the garage door first, right? A lot of these things happen in transitional spaces, and I get into it because there's some real world examples from near where I live. And I live in a very nice neighborhood, a typical suburbia, nice little lawns, everybody's doing fine. But we've had home invasions near us, within a few miles. And we'll get into sort of how to think about that when you evaluate threat, right? Because what you have to do is you have to, first of all, have a tactical mindset, what I call a tactical mindset. What you can also just call it is being conscious of the world around you and what the threats are and that they exist. And I want to stress here that a tactical mindset, in my view, what I'm referring to as a tactical mindset, is not paranoia. I'm not talking about being paranoid. Paranoia is driven by fear or emotion. It's a high stress, low information game. I'm scared of everybody and everything. That doesn't make any sense. I'm not scared of lots of stuff. And preparation, tactical mindset, is driven by training and logic. So it's high information and low stress. I've already considered these things. I don't have to stress about them in the moment quite as much. You're going to stress. If something happens, as well as I do, better than I do, that the stress will be there, that you'll get the adrenaline dump. It will be ugly. But if you've planned and prepared at least a little bit in advance, you have less of that. So sweat in we used to say in the Army, sweat in training is less blood in combat, right? The more you sweat in training. So that's why you do that. And another thing that I think, just put it another way, does having a fire extinguisher in your house mean that you're irrationally scared of fire? No, I think it means it's a common sense precaution against a known phenomenon, right? Fires happen. We have fire extinguishers in our homes for that reason. And that's kind of where I'm coming from on this. I don't want people to think that this is like, you've got to, immediately go out and buy triple strand concertina wire and Claymore mines at the perimeter and, set your machine guns up on a final protective fire. No. You just got to be common sense. And there really are wolves in the world. I mean, that's one of the things that I think I've had this conversation with dear friends of mine who don't think like I think, which is fine. I mean, you do you, right? But no, come on, it'll never happen here. It can't happen to me. There are lots of people who don't have a plan, and I think most people don't have much of a plan, in part because they just can't envision that something bad might happen to them. The key to all of that is just being aware of your surroundings. I mean, honestly, that's the key to it all. Be aware of your surroundings. What should be there? What shouldn't be there? That awareness, that sense of looking around and understanding what's, remember in Sesame Street, one of these things is not like the others. Two of these things are kind of the same. If I've got a weird car on my street, I'm going to notice him. Now, I might not have to, uh, respond to him, but I know he's there. And I will know I'm not going to lose sight of that when I drive down the street. Oh, you're not supposed to be here. Who are you? And I'm going to be careful about it. There's another Army field manual, the survival manual, had a great quote that I literally have it on my wall right here. All right, you
Okay.
see it. And it says, two of the gravest dangers to survival are a desire for comfort and a passive outlook. You can't be passive about it. You just can't. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean that you have to be paranoid. That doesn't mean you have to be sort of, on edge all the time. It does mean that you have to be aware. And so those are some framing thoughts about how to do that, how to approach this problem. There's a guy called Colonel Jeff Cooper, who was really the father of sort of modern handgunning. And I don't know much about him other than he obviously taught a lot of people to shoot. But he had a color code system: white, yellow, orange, and red. And those had to do with your tactical mindset, what your consciousness level is. And white is essentially oblivious. And I can give you an example of white right here, right now.
Right.
You got guys walking around with their phones like that.
True.
Absolutely oblivious to what's walking around them, oblivious to everything. That's a dangerous attitude to be in. That is a dangerous state to be in, because then it can come up like that. You'll have no warning. You'll have no time to set yourself up. That's a danger. Yellow is relaxed but alert. And, you can walk into a room and look around and, okay, does everything look okay in here? What's off? Is anything off? Nothing's off. Okay, fine. I'm good. I know where the exits are. I know where my family is. I know I'm conscious. Orange is when you have a specific alert. Something here isn't right, and you're now focused on that potential threat. Okay, that guy's acting strange. And we've all seen it in various contexts. You're at a store or something and somebody's just acting off, or something's not right with this guy. Well, now I'm focused on you a little bit. I want to make sure that I understand where you are in relation to me and mine at all times. You've become an issue. And then red, of course, is action. That particular threat actor has done something or said something or is in a position where you could get hurt, and you've got to focus on him. You're either going to run, you're going to attack, you're going to do whatever you've got to do. Run, hide, defend, whatever it happens to be. That's red. I think your default position in honesty should be a yellow. Be aware. I walk into a room. Okay. These are people I don't know. Are they okay? Yeah, they seem okay. Good. But I'm aware. I'm conscious. I don't take it for granted that they're going to be there. I mean, another way of looking at it is a General Mattis from the Marine Corps had this concept of left of bang. So you have bang, this moment of chaos, this moment of sort of eruption, if you will. What came before that? What were the things that led up to that? If you can recognize those signals to the left of that explosive moment, you can take action to avoid it. You can take action to respond to it. You can take action to hide from it. So that idea of left of bang, what are some of the indicators? What are pre-attack indicators? And there's been a series of really unfortunate videos that I've seen where somebody's walking down the street and two young toughs walk by them and slug them for no reason.
Wow.
Typically somebody my age. It happened here recently in Chicago where somebody got pushed onto the train tracks, for God's sake, by a lunatic. Well, what were if you look at those videos and you parse them out and really think about them, you can see some indicators. The two guys start to separate a little bit. They start doing things. They're not acting right. And the guy walking along, the old guy, he's just head down moving. He's in white mindset. He was in white mindset. And you can't be in white mindset. You have to say, okay, there's two dudes walking toward me that now they're acting a little funny.
Transition pretty good. You have to be observant and be ready to make that transition.
Yeah,
Right?
you really do. You really do. And that's left of bang, right? That's left of bang. I've seen an indicator. These guys suddenly separated and they're sort of acting like they're having an expansive conversation. But what they're really doing is gearing up to tee off on you. And, part of that is making yourself look like a harder target.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is not, body armor and walking around looking like a spaceman or a Navy SEAL. Basically, act like walk with purpose, go where you're going, head up on a swivel. People understand that you're conscious because people are looking for weaknesses. People are looking for weaknesses.
What are some of the factors or the considerations to avoid a situation like that?
Uh, If I understand your question right, me walking down the street and being aware, I see that, I move across the street. I give a wide berth. I am aware and I'm looking at them so that they know I'm aware of them. That alone will deter a lot of people. The idea is to waylay you, to get you completely unaware and sucker punched. Now you're on the ground, you get kicked 2 or 3 times and they run off. I guess the concept is be aware and be ready to avoid, be ready to respond in some way. For me, I have different ways I would probably respond to something like that, depending also on whether if my wife is walking with me as well. I mean, what am I doing? I'm pushing her over this way. We're both moving the hell out of the way. We're not doing this. I'm not having this. But you have to be aware that those indicators exist and what they might be. This tactical mindset thing, it matters a lot. And it matters because time is not your friend. Time is not your friend in these situations. Average burglary takes about 8-12 minutes to get done. Entry into a home under 60 seconds. And this is FBI statistics. I'm not making it up. Carjacking, 15 to 20 seconds is the average. Okay.
It happens so fast, and there's a million things going on within those seconds.
Those seconds are interminable, as you know well. But it doesn't take long for things to go south. The absolute goal is to avoid that, stay left of bang. Avoid bang altogether. Keep that yellow mindset until it becomes orange or red. In other words, jumping back to the example of the man who got punched on the street, as soon as I see those two guys, they are orange to me. Okay, I'm now orange. I don't like the look of that. And when I see them separating like that, they're starting to move toward red because I don't like that behavior. And I notice that it's anomalous. It's not the same, again, one of these things is not like the others. This thing is looking different than it should. And if you trust your gut and if you're an observant person, you can pick up those cues. You can see them. You can see those cues. And we talked about how much time it takes to burglarize a home, to make entry into a home, these kinds of things. At the same time, remember that here in Chicago, for example, which is where I am, the average response time for 911 in a life-threatening emergency at priority 1, the average is 8 to 12 minutes for police response. That means there's probably a bunch above that and a bunch below that, but it also means, wow, how long is 8 minutes? Somebody sit there and just sit at your desk and look at your watch and let 8 or 12 minutes go by and imagine all the things that might happen in that time space. There's a guy called John Correa who has various podcasts and a website. I like him, but I don't know him and he doesn't know me. But he said something I liked, which was that awareness buys you time and time buys you options. And I think that that's an important concept. If the listeners get nothing else out of our talk today, remember that awareness buys you time. Time buys you options. If I was aware of those two guys walking down the street early, I have the option to cross the street. I have the option to do something else. I have the option to reach for my, trusty dusty can of mace. I mean, whatever it is, I have an option at that point. If it comes on you like that, you don't have the options. You don't have the time. Opening the door to a stranger, you've ceded your time. And that time is what makes a lot of difference. A great way to put it. You're sacrificing your options when you cede time. Time is critical. We'll talk about planning here in a little bit in sort of a military framework for it that I think works fairly well in a civilian context. But time is a factor. I mean, it's one of the key factors we think about in developing an initial plan. And I get it. I live in this world. I've been a civilian for a while, at least technically, and there's lots of obstacles to having a good, solid mindset about defense and about being conscious, being aware. One of them is we have a normalcy bias. We have a bias toward things being normal.
Yeah.
This is just the way things are. So that your brain wants to tell you this, it's probably nothing. Yeah, it was just that was just a car backfire.
Yeah.
whatever. We don't want to think these bad thoughts, and we feel kind of silly doing it. But a good defensive mindset requires you to acknowledge that there is the possibility of danger immediately, rather than waiting and wasting seconds that count for a lot, those seconds, to rationalize it away. One of the things that I once said, and my son told me I ought to write it down, so I did. But this is a quote from me, which is that denial is a survival strategy that has long outlived its usefulness.
I like that one.
You can deny all you want, it ain't gonna help.
Right.
And it's a good way to get yourself hurt. But you can't deny that there are wolves out there. There just are. And you can either be a good sheepdog in your own home, or you can be a lamb in your own home. And another famous quote, not quite so famous, but the lion will lie down with the lambs, but only if you keep adding fresh lambs every now and again. So let's talk about, now that I've sort of scared the heck out of everybody about the parade of horribles that exist in the world. Let's talk about some principles of defending your home. First of all is threat assessment. We'll go through each of these a little bit. But first of all is an assessment. Where are we? What is the threat? What do I look like right now? What do I have to work with? What can I do? And then the layers of defense that we talked about. And those layers are deterrence, detection, delay, and defend. Okay. And those aren't necessarily original to me. A lot of people frame them slightly differently, but they're pretty constant across, I think, most people who have given this serious thought. That's important to sort of know that there are layers there, right? That it starts essentially in the exterior and moves toward the interior. In other words, we're not defending at the perimeter. I don't need, somebody was talking to me about why didn't I have a long range rifle? And I said, because if you're that far away, you're not a threat to me. I don't have any need to shoot you at some great distance. I just don't. And if you're that far away, I can get away. I got time. And a big part of this is to avoid having to confront any of this in the first place, obviously. We can also talk a little bit about some of the tactical considerations you might want to think about and what kind of home defense tools and self-defense tools you might want to think about as we go on. But let's talk about METT, METT-T. That's something you may be familiar with as a former Army officer, but it's mission, enemy, troops, terrain, and time available.
Okay.
Those are the 5 planning considerations. MET-T, mission, enemy, troops, terrain, time available. Now, in a military context, I have a mission. I have to go from here to there to do this.
Right.
Here, the mission is very simple. I have to defend my home. Okay. Writ large, that's your mission. Okay. Now we got to think about what's the enemy? What's the threat? And there's lots of good sources of information out there. You can go on right now. I can go on, I can't remember the name of the site, patch, some kind of patch, I think it's called. Here, there's an Orland Park patch, and it'll have a crime map.
Yeah.
It'll have a crime map. What's going on? Where is it? We talked earlier about home invasions. One of the things that happens near us, if you were to look at our little suburb, we're probably 8-10 miles north of the interstate. But those suburbs spread down almost to the east-west interstate corridor, and then they spread east to the north-south corridor. And what I discovered in looking at it is that there was a series of home invasions, and have been a series of home invasions, within about 2 or 3 miles of that interstate corridor. Why? It's an escape route. And what they were doing was driving around the neighborhood on a Saturday afternoon. You're out there mowing the yard, garage door's up, isn't it? Kids are running in and out of the house. You're in white mode. And what they would do is drive around. Oh, that looks interesting. Pulled into the driveway to the garage. I mean, the garage door's open.
Yeah.
Now you're in my kitchen, right? Now you're in my kitchen. That's not someplace I want you to be. And this happened a lot. And then as soon as they're done, back on the interstate and off into the great big city of Chicago, which is several millions of people and very difficult to, the navigation of finding somebody in there becomes problematic.
I think it's important that people follow those apps that tell you what's going on in your area. You'll get alerts if you want.
There are criminals out there, and they will target you if you let them. And I'm not paranoid at all. I just take certain precautions based on what I know to be going on around me, and that buys me time. Again, it buys me time.
And then you have options.
In a military context, the first T is troops. What troops are available? And in this context, what that means is who's in your house. For me, it's my wife and I, and that's it. So I have to know what she knows. I have to know where she is, what she thinks her response is going to be. We have to have talked about that. If you have little kids, what's the rule? Okay. If something bad happens, where do they go? Do they know to go run straight to your room, straight to their room? Where do you want them to go? And kids are, of course, a big variable in this. for those younger than me. Mercifully, my childhood has survived to adulthood. It was touch and go there for a while, whether I would pinch his head off. In any event, what are the kids supposed to do? What are the sons supposed to do? I can recall my son was probably, I think, 18, senior in high school. He had the day off. I was on my way to the train to go downtown to my office, and suddenly there was a train delay, and they had this sort of mechanical voice up there that says, your train is 15 minutes late due to, and then it would say mechanical difficulty. And this time it said police activity.
Okay.
What did that mean? So everybody's out and I'm on the phone. What police activity? And it turned out that down at the far end of the terminus of this line, there was a family that owned several 7-Elevens, and somebody did a home invasion because they assumed that these people would have a lot of cash at home. And then they had run off and they were hiding in the rail yard. Okay. That's not good. It took them a while. They found them, whatever, bottom line. But I called my son immediately at home. I said, son, get the shotgun, make sure that it's charged up. And I don't want you more than about 6 feet from your mother until I call you back. That's it. I'm not having it. I'm not going to be a victim to that.
Right.
Not if I have awareness,
Right.
right? If you're aware of it, why would you let yourself go down that road? Of course I'm going to have my son was like, Roger out, Pop.
Yeah. How old was he at the time?
About 18.
Okay. He was ready.
And he was competent with a firearm, knew what he was about. He'd been trained, very responsible young man in that context anyway. He was a lunatic otherwise, but I love the guy. Terrain is the next T. And in the military, of course, that actually refers to physical hills, dales, saddles, news of approach, these kinds of things. In a home context, how do you get into your house? How does somebody get into your house? What are the entry points? Where are the vulnerabilities in this thing? It's not hard to dope that out. It's not hard to look at your layout, look at your situation and understand these are the vulnerabilities. These are the points at which I need to do something to either protect myself better or to ameliorate the risk in some way. And then the last T is time. How much time you got? And I will give you a hint, Lori, it's never enough. It's never enough time.
Good point.
It's less than you think, and it's less than you want.
Right.
Abraham Lincoln once said that if you give him 6 hours to chop down a tree, he'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. And there's something to that. Prepare. Just prepare. And it doesn't have to be this elaborate, again, triple strand concertina, I've got machine guns on the perimeter and this. No, it doesn't have to be that. My home is very inviting. Come on in. If you're invited. And if you're not, might not be a good idea to kick in that door. It just might not. It won't go well for you. I can tell you that.
Yeah. And that step about terrain, I have a question about that when you have.
Yes, ma'am.
So the terrain being your home, and it can expand out to your neighborhood, the suburban environment, or wherever you are. But what are your thoughts about certain ways to protect your windows and your sliders? And what do you think about even a wooden dowel, or what are the technologies that you find that are effective?
I have a wooden dowel in my sliding glass door, but it's also a double pane, very difficult to break kind of a window. There are coatings for your windows that you can use. You should use 4-inch reinforced screws in your hinges. Big, deep, heavy reinforced screws in your hinges. Things of that nature are fabulous, and they buy time.
Yeah, I can vouch.
Anything can be breached at some point. I mean, if you add enough force, brute force and ignorance counts for a lot. But yeah, there are plenty of things like that are very cheap, very easy fixes, and very effective. Very effective. There's coatings for your windows that make them difficult to break, or that make them difficult. They don't shatter in a way that allows somebody to enter right away.
And they're budget friendly.
They're budget friendly. They're just not much. Let's talk briefly about assessment. Okay, how to assess this stuff. And I think that'll lead in, I think, to some of the other questions that you had. Some of the things that you need to look at. What are the crime statistics for your area, as we've discussed? What goes on in your area? What are the threats? Has it changed? Does it change? We used to have virtually no armed robberies in my little suburban world. And now we do. And where do they happen? They happen at transitional spaces. They happen at ATM machines, specifically drive-up ATM machines. You're in your car, you're all like this, you got to reach out the window, you got to do this. It's never right. The thing's never at the right height, and you're reaching out, and you're all discombobulated. And that's when somebody comes up. Positional space. Okay. You're in between things. You're not driving and you're not parked. You're doing something.
Yeah.
And that's that transition that we talked about. Those are ripe. Physical location of your home and neighborhood. All right. If you live in suburbs that are closer into a city, for example, is that different from living further out? What are the physical characteristics of your area? How close are the first responders? How close are you, as we discussed before with the interstates, how close are you to escape routes? If you map this out in Chicago, you can see that it's closer in suburbs, and it's suburbs that are closer to escape routes that suffer home invasions far more than others. Yeah, and mercifully, I hope they get here quick, but I don't have time to wait for them. I mean, and you also think about this in a different context. Let's say, for example, that you're in Callaway County, Kentucky, or Graves County, Kentucky, where my dad's from. There are 30 deputies for 800 square miles, or actually 30 total employees for the Graves County Sheriff's Department.
Wow.
Okay, and that includes the guys who manage the jail and so forth. They're not getting there. They're not going to get there in time. They're just not. There aren't enough of them. That's worth thinking about. How close are the cops? If you live out in rural Colorado or whatever, I'm quite sure that those counties are big. I don't know how many sheriffs they have, but they can't be everywhere.
Yeah, and in the city, what are the response times? Because in the past several years, it's been very slow because of the
Hmm.
underfunded force. Now it's
Yeah,
getting back up there, but paying attention to that maybe would be a thing to consider.
it's something to just keep in your mind. And what that does is it sort of reinforces the idea that you have to take your own agency and your own responsibility for your home, for what's yours in terms of your family and your loved ones and so forth. The cavalry will not arrive in time. It's really not going to happen. Even if they got here in 3 minutes. Well, okay. Again, sit there with your watch and count out 3 minutes and imagine all the things that can happen to you within that time frame. It's a lot. And that's sort of where I'm coming from on these things. Just as a disclaimer, I am a lawyer. I am not your lawyer. And I'm not giving legal advice here by any means. But yeah, I mean, it's incredibly important, I think, for people to sort of have a sense of what's out there. How does crime play out in our area? What other threats might I face? I mean, here in the Midwest, we worry about tornadoes, and everybody knows that when a tornado siren goes off, you hit the basement. Okay, what's in the basement? I better have some water down there
Yeah.
at a minimum, right? Maybe some tools, whatever. Other things you got to consider, what's the street lighting situation? How close are your neighbors to you? And who are they? Used to laugh and say that the Italian home security system when I lived in Italy was all the nanas on the deck. They're out on the balcony watching the whole neighborhood like hawks. And they'd tell you if something was going on. What's the condition of your home? Are you in good shape? What kind of repairs do you need to do? What kind of repairs would be nice to do? The age, the condition, the readiness of the people in the home. Mercifully, my wife has a pretty decent tactical mindset. She's competent. She wants, she knows what she's doing. But she doesn't like it. I don't like it one bit. She would like very much to, live on on a cloud, but we don't. And she knows it. And she's aware. And she, if she sees something, she says something. My son was that way as well, but it's not that way in every home.
Yeah.
And especially when there's kids involved, sometimes it's something to consider. So there's 4 basic levels of home defense, the layers, as we've talked about. The first is to deter. What you want to do there is make a criminal decide that you're not worth it. That looks too much like work, because there's a default position for criminals, just as there is for anybody else, which is, I'll do the easy stuff, but if it looks hard, I don't know if I want to go. The second is to detect, which again provides early warning and time. The second is delay. In other words, now we're talking about the 4-inch screws. We're talking about those kinds of things that make it harder for somebody to breach the perimeter, so to speak, and get in. And finally, there's, it's time to defend. To actually confront the problem. It's important to stress that these layers are overlapping and they're interrelated. So, for example, Ring cameras, $100 investment, cheap. You can do it tomorrow and have an app. Get the one with the app so that you can see on your phone. You don't have to wait until it's downloaded. 3 weeks later, we're doing an autopsy on what happened to your house. Get the one with the apps. They're cheap. Exterior cameras both deter because people see them and they say, I don't want to be on TV. And they detect, right? So that you see how they overlap that way. Dogs, bless dogs' hearts. Even little wimpy dogs like mine, Francis. Francis wouldn't bite you if you paid him to. I mean, you could slather yourself in bacon and you wouldn't get bit. but he does bark. He does bark. And that's early warning. Postman comes by. Apparently, that's the biggest threat in Francis's life, and he must warn us about it urgently. That also can be a deterrent for somebody who's scared of dogs, right? If you had a decent sized dog and that dog was barking his buns off, you might think twice about coming in that house because you don't want to get bit.
Right.
You see how they overlap in that way. But let's talk about deterrence a little bit. Criminals look for the path of least resistance, just like everybody else does. You want your home to be something of a hard target. Again, I don't mean sandbags and, whatever, but easy stuff. Lighting. Are you well lit in the front? Your landscaping. Keep it so that there's not a lot of places for people to hide out in the bushes. If you looked at that house that I was talking about earlier in Winnetka,
Yeah.
it's beautiful property. Oh my God. It really is a gorgeous home. And it's got trees and bushes and shrubs, and there's 5 or 6 feet of place that you could hide right next to that porch. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what they did. I'm for lower bushes. I have nice landscaping here. We do. My wife works on it incessantly. And it's beautiful. But it's also, there's about a 5 or 6 foot perimeter around the house where you can't hide really. And that's a deterrent. Okay. I can't sneak up to your house and just be there lurking. That would be difficult for someone. And I think that's important to think about. Keep the shrubs trimmed, that kind of thing. Signage. If you got a professional alarm system, maybe you should put it out there. Beware of dog if you have a dog. What I would caution people against is fake signage.
Really?
I think that I think that's stupid, and I think it not my thing. You got an alarm system company, and you don't have an alarm. Don't do that. Beware of the dog, and there's no dog. Or the
And you have a false
worst,
sense of security.
I think it gives a false sense of security, and I just think it's I just uh, it's difficult for me to even describe, but I just don't like it. The other thing I really don't like is this yard protected by Smith and Wesson.
Oh, yeah. It's antagonizing.
Number one, don't antagonize. Number two, don't advertise the fact that you have a firearm in the house because, frankly, that's a very lucrative thing to steal. No, just no. And quite frankly, if you get into a self-defense situation, and again, I'm not giving legal advice, but a self-defense situation means that somebody has charged you with a crime, right? In other words, the law of self-defense posits that you've been charged with a crime and self-defense is a legal excuse. If you're the kind of guy that has, protected by Smith and Wesson, I'll shoot you if you walk in the door kind of thing, that prosecutor is going to use that against you. And he's going to say, this guy was asking for it. He really wanted it. He was hoping he'd get a chance to shoot somebody. Man, I'll tell you right now, I ain't got any interest in this world in shooting anybody. Thank you. No. Will I? Well, kick in the door and find out. No, you don't want that. That's just, it sends the wrong signal. It just
Right.
sends the wrong signal, and it should not be done. A firearm is a very dangerous tool. So is so is a table saw. So is, lots of things. And if you don't know what you're doing with them, or if you're not committed to being competent with them, you really you can create more problems for yourself than you had in the first place. The point being, there are lots of ways to skin that cat in terms of firearms for self-defense and home defense. Do I recommend that? I do if you're willing to commit. I recommend firearms for your home if you're willing to commit. But if you're not, then I don't, honestly. I've had people who come to me for training of various kinds and they got a gun. Now they feel safe. I'm safe. Right. When's the last time you shot it? A year ago. When I bought it. Do you know how to clean it? Do you know what types of ammunition you ought to be thinking about? Do you know any of those things? Can you hit a broadside of a barn at 7 yards? And if the answer is no, then I have no interest. You're a danger to yourself and others at that point. You have to take those things very seriously. And I think people who don't are not doing themselves. It's a false sense of security. Um, and I feel pretty strongly about it, as you may have gathered.
I agree. You gotta be committed to maintaining it, and it's not just cleaning it, and you gotta make sure it's functioning properly at the range, especially, like, in my case, I had that situation where it had only been 6 months, and I had repaired it. I replaced the magazine, but I hadn't yet gone to the range to make sure it worked, and I was
Right.
letting myself be pulled a million directions and didn't focus on that.
Well, I mean, if you look just as an example, my lovely bride, who we've been married nearly 40 years, and she's a former Army officer, as am I, and she understands firearms. She don't like them. Okay. This is not recreational for her. I
Yeah.
like to go to the range. I have fun. To me, it's a Zen thing. I'm in the moment. I have to be in the moment because, and then all the other stuff goes away. It's like golf or anything else. I mean, it's
Yeah.
my wife refers to it sometimes as loud golf. Um,
I like it.
yeah, because that's how I view it. I mean, I have fun doing it. It's something I enjoy. She doesn't enjoy it. She, it's loud, it's, a little smelly. I mean, she's not that comfortable with it. But what she will do once a quarter once a quarter, she will go down and essentially qualify with the firearm, okay, her firearm, so that she's competent with it and she's comfortable where, she knows where it is, how it works. She's comfortable that it works and works well, and she can hit things with it. That's enough. Nobody's asking you to be Annie Oakley. Nobody's asking you to be that guy on, Hickok 45 here, ting, 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 and he's hitting with a, hitting 50-yard targets with a pistol. I can't do that. I'm a good shot. I can't do that, but I don't need to. I need to be competent. I need to be good at what I do and comfortable that I can manipulate the firearm safely, store it safely, all those kinds of things. And if you're not willing to commit to that, don't get a gun.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. I'm telling you right now, you're going to wind up shooting somebody else you didn't mean to shoot if you're incompetent with it. Again, you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be one of those competitive shooter types. But if you're not conversant, really conversant, that's me.
Yeah. Makes sense. It's important. You've got to take it seriously. It's a deadly weapon.
It's a deadly weapon, and it's designed to be one. And, that's a mindset thing as well, right? I mean, I have to know that if someone were to break into my home, God forbid, I'm prepared to do what I have to do to defend my family. And I'm competent enough with it that I can pull that off.
Yeah.
Let's talk about detecting things, which is another layer to this. Again, you've got to remember the centrality of time. Detection buys you time. Time buys you options. How do you buy time? Well, motion detectors at points of access. Things like visible cameras. And again, that is Venn diagrammed with detection and deterrence. Ring type doorbell, like I said, $100, you can have one tomorrow. Hit Amazon, you're there.
It's worth it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well worth it.
Keypad gate or some kind of RFID gate, if you have that, if that's what your property looks like. And I will tell you, here's a detection device that probably cost you $30 on the front end, cost you a lot more than that over time, and it'll cost you heartache in the end. A dog.
Yeah.
A dog. As I said, my dog is absolutely convinced that the mailman is here to kill us all. That's why the mailman exists, and I must alert the family to it every time. That's fine with me.
Yeah.
That's fine with me. Let me know.
Yeah.
Because even a dog that won't bite you will, in fact, bark and tell you that something's happening.
Yeah.
That's a detection device. Alarm system with lights and sirens and all that. I like those. I think that's useful. I'm less convinced about the call center that immediately picks up the phone and calls the police for you.
Yeah.
Well, there's another 4 minutes to your 8 to 12, right? It seems to me that having a phone on your person, which we all do now, and the ability to call 911 is enough. If the alarm goes off, call the cops. So those are some things to think about in terms of defense, of detection. In terms of delay, again, time. This is what's called a Fabian strategy from a Roman general. And a Fabian strategy refers to not fighting the fight, but delaying, keeping the enemy off balance, but delaying to preserve your own force. So again, doors, solid core doors are a must, especially, in the exterior parts of your home. If you ever go to a hotel and feel how heavy those doors are,
Yeah.
those are solid doors, and they're solid for a reason. Partly it's fire retardant, but also you can't kick that thing in.
Yeah. And there are lessons and stories like that. Like our front door would have been kicked in instantly had it not been reinforced. The people kicking in the door actually broke the tiles on the floor. That's how hard they had to kick. And had it been easier, I never would have made it upstairs to the gun.
Apparently it was set up pretty well.
It was a solid home. Of course, my father was a military officer and he made sure 4 girls.
Yeah. Yeah, he was protecting the home. Of course he was. There's a theme that's been running through everything I've talked about so far, and I'm going to say it again because I can't help myself. Time.
Yeah.
Time. Delay. Time. Buy time. If you hadn't had that much delay, you wouldn't have been able to make it upstairs. Okay? Think about how these things happen so quickly. They can be very sudden. An extra minute, an extra 30 seconds may be enough for you to do something to affect the outcome in a way that doesn't end in tragedy. One of the other things that I would say is lock lock the car when it's in the driveway, close the garage door is an entrance to your home, keep it shut. One of the things that has happened once or twice around here that I've heard of is thieves come up in the night, bash in the door to the car in the driveway or the window and hit the garage door button.
Okay. I didn't think of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I keep the clicker in the glove box. Or on, the console thing, so it's not visible. It's simple, easy stuff that you can do. Again, just buys you some time.
Yeah.
Recognize that if somebody's really determined, they're going to get in.
Yeah. Aren't there some crime rings that have technology that can trigger a garage door to go up? Or I'm not sure if that's myth or
I don't know that. I think that used to be more of a threat, but I think now in the digital age, that thing is generating random codes every time you push the
okay,
button and coordinating with the sensors. So I don't know that that's quite as big a threat as it once was,
that's good.
where you had a fixed code. Yours was a fixed code to your transmitter and your button
Yeah.
were one thing. Now I think they randomly generate code and it's different,
Okay.
but it's still worth considering. I mean, worth thinking about. One other thing, and this is a complete aside, if you do own a firearm, don't store it in your damn car. Just don't do it. Bring it in at night. Don't be an idiot. I was listening to some Florida sheriff who was talking about something like 60% of the gun theft in his county was from parked cars.
Wow. Yeah.
Really, just don't do it.
Yeah.
After one thing, it's not doing you any good in there.
Yeah.
And for another, it's an invitation for somebody to steal it. And if somebody steals your gun, you got a problem. You've got a problem. In Illinois, you have, I think, 24 or 48 hours to report the theft of a firearm. And that ain't happening to me. It's just not going to happen. The final layer of defense essentially is to defend. And that's where you think about, what do you have to do now? There are steps to that. I think it's important to remember that the only objective of defending in this context is literally the safety of the residents, right? The safety of the people in the home. What you're not doing generally is clearing your house. And I've seen guys who talk about home defense, talk about, okay, now I've got the flashlight and I'm going downstairs and I'm clearing room to room to room to room. Like hell, I'm not doing that. If you're down there and I'm up here, have at it, boys. Have at it. I've already called the law.
Yeah. You'd rather have
And
the
I'm
law
up here. What's that?
let the law clear the house.
Let the law clear the house. That's their job. I don't want to do room clearing. There are people who can do that, wonderfully competent guys who can do that. I'm competent enough. I bet I could, but I don't want to do it. Doesn't make any sense for me to go down there and court trouble. I'm up in my safe space. And if you come up here, we got another issue to talk about and there won't be much talking. But at the same time, I'm not going to go offensively room to room to room to clear the house. I'm just not going to do it. It doesn't make sense to me to expose yourself in that way.
Right.
And to leave whatever sanctuary you have. The steps are to evade, right? The first thing you want to do is evade. And that means going up to a room, going somewhere, a strong pointing perhaps, but stay away from the trouble. Again, I'm not clearing the house because I don't want to go walk into the trouble. You have to arm yourself with whatever it is that you got, whether that's a baseball bat, some bear spray, pepper spray type stuff, whatever it is. You have to arm yourself at that point and be prepared to defend yourself. You should barricade yourself. You should have a room in the house that everybody knows if this happens, go here. In our case, it's the master bedroom because I've got a heavy bureau there that I can put in front of the door. As soon as we're both in it, I can move that bureau in front of the door and make it more difficult for somebody to get in. And I have the tools I need in there, including a phone, because the next thing you have to do is contact help. Get on the phone with 911 right away. I have heard various ways to deal with that phenomenon of calling 911, one of which is stay on the line with her. The other is put it on speaker and throw it on the bed. Hey, I got things to do and I need both my hands to do them. Honestly, is my preferred technique. She can hear me. I can hear her or him, whoever it is on the 911 call. But I don't see a lot of need in having the phone up to my ear when I've got things I want to do, tools I want to assemble and whatever it is. I think that is, I just think you can do it without holding it in your hand. What is the room that you're going to use? Is it your master bedroom like mine? It might not be. It might be some other room. Some houses in cities and sort of higher end things have safe rooms and this sort of thing. I don't have one. I would find it wretched excess. But, if that's an option for you, then go for it. The space that you choose ought to be defensible, which is to say it ought to have limited access points. It ought to be a room that you can communicate from. I mean, I don't have any problem with cell service around here ever. But some people would. In the country, there might be parts of your structure, parts of your home that
Right.
are less good for cell service. That's worth knowing. Does everybody in the house know where to go? That's important too. As you know, these things commonly happen at night. What if the kids are asleep in their room? What are their instructions?
Yeah.
And their instructions in my case would be get under the bed and stay there until I come and get you or until a policeman comes. If you hear something bad and you know it's going down, get under the bed, stay there till the police come or until dad gets you, mom, whatever. But everybody needs to know that, and they need to understand that that's the rule. It's not a guideline, it's a rule. What happens? Bang, noise in the night. Kids come out of the room. What's happening? No, get
I wonder if people are afraid to have instructions for their kids about that because they're afraid they're instilling fear or they might overreact. But you can, I guess, like you said, you can relate it to the fire drills in the school. They pretend we're at school. You have drills there. We got to have drills at home too. Maybe that's a way to do it.
I think that that's a rational approach. I think that, nowadays you have active shooter drills at school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course,
Unbelievable.
unbelievable and sad and unnecessary in a lot of respects, but okay, that's it, right? This is life. It's unfortunate that we're at this point. Uh, but I would rather have that happen and have my son feel like, oh man, this is creepy. This is creepy. I'd rather have him do that and survive the situation because he knew what to do, than the alternative, which is unthinkable. So I think it's, as a parent, we have a responsibility to provide our kids with information in the sips and nibbles, so to speak, that they can handle it at particular ages, right? I mean, we don't have that discussion all at once. Build in, and as they mature, we build into what they need to be thinking about, But if there were a fire in your home, what would you do? Does your kid know what to do if there's a fire?
Right.
Okay. I mean, we have fire drills at school. We have fire drills at home. Um, and this is just part of that. In terms of tools for self-defense, again, I think it's a completely separate conversation at some level. But again, I want to stress that you should assess what weapons you have and what weapons you're competent with. Where are those weapons staged? In other words, do you have a weapon downstairs, one upstairs, whatever? Where's your ammunition? How is it staged? Do you have, for example, in a pistol, do you have loaded magazines next to where you keep your pistol? And if you don't, you should. That kind of thing. We talked about shotguns briefly, and I think that they can be very effective. I also think that they require a certain level of skill in their use. People think that a shotgun is a point and click weapon.
Yeah.
It's not. It's something, and it has a hell of a kick. So for smaller framed people, and it'd be an ideal choice. Anybody that wants to talk to me about that separately, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully I haven't screwed the pooch too badly.
Oh my gosh. No, this has been wonderful.
I'm enjoying myself a lot. From a legal perspective, and again, I'm not offering legal advice to anyone ever. I am not your lawyer. You have not paid me. It's your responsibility to know what the law is in your area,
Right.
in your state, your jurisdiction. What are the laws of self-defense and home defense? It's beyond the scope of our talk, I think, to really get into the implications of that, but you have to know it. As a responsible person, you need to understand those things. Virtually every state allows self-defense in appropriate circumstances, but what those circumstances are, you need to understand, and you need to understand things like proportionality and things like, those kinds of things. Now, generally speaking, if somebody has kicked in your door, you're likely going to be on solid footing,
Right.
but you should know what the law is.
So, in a good concealed carry class would probably give you information about law in your state.
A good concealed carry class should, in fact, give you a fair amount of what the law is in your state. Most of the concealed carry classes that I've seen and participated in have a rather large block on the self-defense laws in your jurisdiction, and also storage requirements or anything else that happens to be out there. And that's worth it. It's just worth knowing. I think a couple of things. First of all, you're never going to plan for everything. No plan survives contact with the enemy. It's always a thinking enemy. We can't reduce that rheostat to zero. It just never happens. You need to adjust your plans. If you have a plan, you can adjust your plan. If you have no plan, you have no plan. Remember, you're not playing to win in this context. You're playing not to lose. Okay. What am I doing here? What's the purpose of this? My purpose is not to win the fight. My purpose is not to lose the fight. My purpose is to protect my beautiful wife, but it's not to go out there and smite the enemies and drive my enemies before me and hear the wailing and lamentations of their women. No, that's not what I'm up to here. I think that that's an important kind of roadmap to keep in your mind. And there are certain professions and things and people that where you can adjust fire on this plan, so to speak. For example, real estate agents. Real estate agents they face some unique challenges, and they need to be thinking about them. One of the things that to the extent you can avoid it, don't meet somebody on off site for a first meeting. Meet them in the office if you can help it. Check your gut. What is this person? The vibe here. When you're showing a home, let them go to the basement first. Let them lead. Let them lead. What's that?
I don't know if I'd even go down there with them. I'd just say, you can check it out and let me know.
Well, there's that. I mean, and that's actually a very rational response. Nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing telling you got to go in the basement. You've seen basements before, but have them lead, be in front of you. In terms of self-defense tools, I think one of the things that I would definitely look at if I was a realtor, I would understand completely whether or not I can carry pepper spray. And I would, if that's legal in your jurisdiction, then I would absolutely carry pepper spray. I would also make sure that before I went to show a house or went somewhere with someone I don't know, everybody knows where I'm going.
Right.
Everybody knows roughly how long it's going to take me, and so on. If for no other reason than to reclaim the body. But unfortunately, that's the reality. People need to know where you are, and they need to understand, what the thing is. If it's at all possible to do it with two people with you, two realtors, or a realtor and a realtor's assistant, that's ideal. That's better. I recognize that that's unrealistic in a lot of cases. One of the things that I have told my next door neighbor is he's moved, but he's a fabulous realtor and a dear friend. And one of the things he was talking to me about that very item, and I said, here's something I suggest. You pull up, first of all, don't park in the driveway where you can get blocked in.
Yeah.
Park on the street and do a 10-second assessment of what you're looking at here. Is this a house I even want to go in? Is this person giving me any kind of sketchy vibes at all? 10 seconds, look around you. What's out of place? One of these things is not like the others. Two of these things are kind of the same. It's simple, but you learn a lot in kindergarten, as it turns out. Take your awareness of your surroundings and your situation needs to be heightened if you're in a profession like real estate, like home inspections, like anything else, where you're out by yourself in an unfamiliar environment. It's important for you to keep that awareness up.
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing it up because we do work with a lot of realtors ourselves and in our business. And we're concerned because we hear the stories of things that happen and they have the open house days where they're in that house. May just be one person coming through during that hour, and who is that person? And so a lot of what you're talking about speaks to how they could actually even layer their defense or have a plan in place. So I really appreciate that for them.
No, I think that's the key, is have that plan in place. Have an idea that, okay, I know where the exits are. I have access to a defensive tool of some sort if that's appropriate and legal. People know where I am. Somebody they can check up on me if they need to. Those kinds of things. And tag teaming, one of the things that, again, my neighbor, he was the broker owner of his agency. And one of the things he did, if they had an open house, they would have a realtor sitting in there. And again, you don't know who's coming in. They're not vetted. They just wander in the door and God knows who they could be. He would have somebody from his office about every hour or two just drive by and check up on them.
Nice.
You just go walk in, say, how you doing? You need anything? Or how are you? Whatever. But every hour or two, he'd have somebody go over and make physical contact with the broker or the realtor that was in the house. And I think that that's smart. I think that first of all, it's good leadership. But in the second place, I think it makes sense that again, buying some time.
Right.
But anyway, that's pretty much my presentation, young lady. I don't know if hopefully I've hit the target for you.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
It's
I'm
been
absolutely
wonderful for
happy to
you to
do
be
it.
willing to step up and help me with the message and share all your expertise and your background. And you took something that can be complex or overwhelming for people. They're busy with their lives and they don't realize it needs to be a part of their life and that it can be without being paranoid or causing fear.
You don't need to have sleeve tattoos or great big beards or anything like that. You don't have to be Mr. Tough Guy. You just have to be conscious. Remember that you're in many significant ways, what you're doing is buying time.
And that's the best right there. I thank you for everything and coming on, and it's been wonderful getting to know you. And from your perspective, you don't a lot of times that do I hear people talking about personal safety from your unique perspective. So that's really valued, and I really appreciate you coming on.
It's been my pleasure, Lori. It really has. And thank you so much for having me.